The objective is to do well on the WTA Tour. The ultimate goal is to win slams, but I'm really proud of what I was able to achieve. After Alex Eala's ascent, the tennis icon loses control, and the sport has never been the same. No one anticipated this. A stealthy ascent gave way to a booming takeover. A teenage outsider appends a sport dominated by untouchable icons. Respect gave way to contempt, whispers became headlines, and one legend, seeing their reputation fade, finally lost it, on and off the court, in front of the whole world. Was this dread of being replaced or jealousy? At first, nobody saw her. The most bizarre aspect of it all was that Alex Eala went silently through the early rounds, carrying nothing but a racket and an unnerving serenity, as the cameras chased champions and pundits repeated well-known names. She didn't arrive with audacious declarations or widely shared celebrations, nor was she boisterous or contentious. Perhaps this is why the warning flags were disregarded. She was born in a region that the tennis community hardly ever searches for its next big star. There was only unadulterated skill, dedication, and a belief that didn't require approval. No long history of victors, no implicit respect. She was noted by coaches as courteous but unyielding. She listened more than she spoke, according to practice partners. Early on, her detractors wrote her off as a sentimental tale. They would pay a price for that error. On the surface, her first significant victory wasn't particularly noteworthy. There were no broken rackets or emotional breakdowns on the opposite side of the net, just a scoreboard that was incomprehensible to those who believed they knew hierarchy. A teenager threw, a seeded player out. It was referred to as luck by analysts. It was described as exciting by fans. It was a dreadful day, according to veterans. However, unpleasant days don't recur in this manner. Alexa's game revealed something unsettling match after match. She took her time. When the momentum changed, she didn't panic. She broke back when she was broken. She leaned forward as the mob pressed against her. She became quieter as the pressure mounted. And that quiet, it started to sound loud. Before the headlines appeared, there were rumors. How is she interpreting the game in this manner? She doesn't play like a child her age. Names don't scare her. Because names are important in women's tennis, the final one was significant. They are in charge of space. They manipulate storylines, crowds, and umpires. Legends control atmospheres in addition to winning games. And by refusing to be intimidated, Alex Eala was unintentionally upsetting that equilibrium. Everything was altered by a single rally. A protracted battle against a player whose career had already made history, deep into a decisive set. Experience against instinct, strength versus accuracy. Alexa didn't yell or pump her fist when the last shot clipped the line and the point finished. Instead, she simply walked calmly to the baseline with her eyes forward. Nevertheless, the audience exploded. At that point, perception changed as well as the scoreboard. The pundits began referring to her as dangerous instead of promising. Social media was flooded with videos that were slowed down, examined, and discussed. While some complimented her poise, others doubted her self-assurance, mistaking it for conceit. And there was someone watching intently somewhere else, distant from the court. A legend, a name that used to terrify them, suddenly made their chest clench in an uncomfortable way. It wasn't rage just yet. It was acknowledgement, the type you get when you see the future coming sooner than you anticipated, when the acclaim that used to follow you starts to follow someone else. That victory wasn't celebrated by Alex Eala as a breakthrough. In interviews, she praised her staff, spoke quietly, and stated that she was still learning. But precisely what are you learning? How can one defeat idols? How can one withstand the kind of strain that destroys seasoned champions? Because it was getting harder to deny one truth. Her ascent wasn't coincidental, nor was it slowing down. Nobody realized at the time that someone else was already being pushed near the edge by her quiet climb. Legends shouldn't feel intimidated. At least that is the myth. The responses from the elite level of women's tennis followed a well-known pattern by the time Alex Eala's name started making the rounds outside of highlight reels. Publicly, there were compliments, smiles at press conferences, and well-chosen remarks about the sport's future and fresh talent. Everything appeared respectful at first glance. But something was changing beneath the surface. It was first seen in the locker room. When Alexa entered, everyone stopped talking. Not antagonistic, just perceptive. The eyes lingered for a moment more. Some gamers examined her as if she were an unfamiliar puzzle. Some completely shunned her, afraid to confront the unsettling notion that this ascent wasn't fleeting. Then there was the legend, a player whose career had been built on emotional intensity, dominance, and using pure willpower to win games. Opponents have crumbled under that strain for years. Smashed rackets. Self-assurance vanished. Her hallmark was control. Of stories, of moments, of matches. Until everything started to get out of control. Body language was the first step. A stare at the coaching box after a missed return. A double fault responded with a mumbled grumble and a tightened jaw. Commentators dismissed it as rivalry. It was identified by fans as frustration. Those who were close to the incident, however, sensed something more profound. This has nothing to do with a single game or opponent. This has to do with presence, with Alexa acting as though the aura of legends didn't exist. She didn't move quickly between ideas. She didn't look away. She was disrespectful. She was the epitome of disregard for reputation. Furthermore, apathy might be harmful. The icon was questioned about the younger generation following a very close game elsewhere on the tour. It was meant to be a softball, a standard question. Rather, the response landed clumsily. "Talent is one thing," she remarked, stopping just long enough to draw attention. However, respect and consistency require time. No names were required, and none were mentioned. Fans saw it right away. Videos circulated on the internet, slowed down, and were analyzing every inadvertent me. From hotel rooms, from practice courts, and from a distance that seemed closer with each victory Alexa achieved. Every win strengthened a question that no one wanted to voice out. What occurs when inevitability and supremacy collide? Neither a handshake nor a headline marked the breaking point. It arrived during a time of bereavement. The legend lost a contest that was supposed to be under his control. For the first time in a long time, the opponent across the net wasn't afraid. Instead, she was motivated by the turmoil as points were rushed and tempers boiled. The legend then reclined in her chair and let out a breath during a press appearance with flashing cameras. "This sport is evolving," she remarked. She didn't smile all the way to her eyes. It was referred to as bitterness by some and honesty by others. However, one thing was certain. The crack had emerged, and Alexa Eala's ascent was no longer only a triumphant tale. It acted as a trigger. It was more than simply tennis by this point. Scoreboards for Alexa Eala's games were no longer silent. They were present on the internet, participating in debates, comment sections, and millions of replays of snipped moments. Each victory seemed more significant than the previous one. Every composed stroll to the chair and every quiet response was seen by some as provocation and by others as assurance. The gap was widening. Fans praised her as the future, fearless, determined, and unaffected by her notoriety. Her manner was questioned by some. Too certain, too cold. She needed to be more respectful. The same poise that had previously gone undetected was now being examined closely. The moment that everyone was talking about then arrived. After a hard-won victory, Alexa stopped at the net for a moment longer than usual. She shook hands firmly, nodded, and turned away without grinning or apologizing. It was brief, less than a heartbeat, but sufficient in a sport where manners are paramount. Videos went viral on social media. "Have you noticed that? That was deliberate. She is fully aware of what she is doing." Her name started to trend with that of the tale. Timelines were inundated with comparisons. Old videos reappeared, furious festivities, menacing looks, and emotional outbursts juxtaposed with Alexa's quiet. It was nearly confrontational. The contrast felt symbolic. Days later, the legend was directly questioned by the media regarding the mindset of the younger generation. She gave a harsh reply. She noted that although they have talent, it doesn't last without humility. The fuse was lighted by that sentence. Critics piled on, past players voiced their opinions, and supporters hurried to protect Alexa. Officially, the narrative had changed from rising star to cultural clash, old fire versus new ice. Meanwhile, Alexa remained silent. No explanations, rebuttals, or posts. And for some reason, the quietest voice was the loudest. Because it seemed more and more that the pressure was on the legend to come to terms with the fact that she was no longer the only one in the spotlight, rather than on the newcomer. The escalation was finished. A full-fledged storm developed from the moment of control slipping. The tennis world was rocked as Eala sprinted alongside Alexa, causing headlines to scream, social media to explode, and a legend to lose his rage. Every gesture, every look, every pause was discussed by analysts. Suddenly, the sport that depends on accuracy and poise turned into an emotional play. The legend was the first to face backlash. Sponsors waited anxiously, former champions questioned her sportsmanship, and fans chastised her tantrums. Every comment made during interviews was examined. There was a sigh, a shrug, a harsh tone, all signs that Alexa's ascent had caused something unexpected. In the meantime, both encouraging and critical messages flooded Alexa's inbox. Both adoration and animosity were stoked by the young star's serene manner, which stood in stark contrast to the mayhem around her. The story had changed, now focusing on temperament, respect, and generational strife rather than just competence. And rumors of reprisals started to circulate somewhere in the shadows. The legend did not end there. Without a battle, she would not allow her legacy to be overshadowed. Tennis had changed from being a game with set hierarchies and regular routines to one that was unpredictable. The stakes in every game now went far beyond the score. The aftermath was only getting started, and everyone was watching. It was now time for clarity after weeks of circling controversy. At last, Alex Eala spoke in a calm, collected, and theatrical manner. She remarked, "I respect every player I face. All I want to do is play my game and get better." These seemingly innocent, straightforward remarks sparked a fresh conversation. While some praised them as maturity above her years, others wrote them off as skillfully constructed publicity. In the meantime, the tale was under more examination than ever. Commentators, classmates, and former coaches analyzed her responses and questioned whether losing her cool was ever appropriate. Did she feel frustrated with her own performance? Or worry about being replaced? The story of one match had become a narrative about sportsmanship, generational changes, and individual pride as public opinion starkly divided. Other elite players started offering their opinions in interviews. Emma Raducanu commended Alexa's composure under duress, calling it motivational for anyone who enjoys the game. In a rare remark regarding women's tennis, Novak Djokovic pointed out that pressure evaluates character as much as skill. Reconciliation quietly started behind closed doors, with emails exchanged, apologies extended, and respect renewed. A tentative recognition began to take the place of the storm of popular indignation. The tennis world was changing. The reality was straightforward but profound. Tension doesn't arise from success alone. Pride, human passion, and personality conflicts do. Instead of destroying a legend, Alexa's ascent exposed the weaknesses that everyone had long overlooked. And the K.